This is the first time I'm doing this with a phone rather than a microphone. So if you guys could raise your hands once again and let me know if I sound clear enough, loud enough, please let me know. Okay, so let's begin. First of all, Scott basically said what happened last week, and there was a couple feet of snow and 70-mile-an-hour winds, and thought we'd be able to make it to this week. And what happened yesterday? Another 16 inches of snow fell, and they expect another 2 feet in the next 10 days. For all of you global warming enthusiasts, you're welcome to come visit me south of Boston. Actually, a lot of folks called me up because they love filming Situate, Massachusetts, where I live. And I live very high up, but it shows the one place in town where the water crashes over, crashes through, and creates a lot of havoc. So that's where I am. In any case, we're talking today about, and this is our first of the new year. We're talking about 3 essentials for building a high-value project pipeline. And I just have to ask Scott to give me control so that I can click the slides here. Before we begin that, this is the new year, and we have a number of these lined up, and we try to pick topics that are essential to you guys performing your jobs or relaying that message. And so we picked the topics based on your feedback and what we hear from our clients. So I hope you enjoy today's chapter. There are 3 things we want to talk about. The first one, before we even get into the 3 essentials, is really defining what a problem is and why we call them problems and how they can turn into projects and how these projects can drive your transformation or your performance improvement activities. The second is understanding those 3 essentials, what we think are 3 areas that you need to focus on to make sure it works and you have a pipeline. And the third one is how to mobilize to create a pipeline. The reason we're having this discussion is because many organizations begin transformation efforts, performance excellence efforts, Lean Six Sigma efforts by launching their projects. And those first projects are very, very easy to find. You just look around and there's plenty of them and you get through a wave or 2. But after the low-hanging fruit is gone, what do you do next? And so there is a science a little bit to capturing and transferring information so that we pick projects, and that's what we're going to try to focus on here. If you have a question throughout, pop it up there. I'll see it, and I'll pause, or I'll ignore it, and I'll wait till the end only because it may be apropos to another time in the conversation. Since I can't see your faces, I can't really respond adequately to that. For those of you who are new, Juran Institute and Juran Global, founded by Dr. Juran, passed away at 103, been a very large contributor to the field of performance excellence, transforming an organization based on the quality of its products and services, and written numerous books. The most notorious is the Quality Control Handbook, which is really an operating guide to performance excellence. Most recently, I published the Essentials book, which is a component of the Juran Handbook, which are the 9 areas that executives should really know about. Juran on Quality by Design, and then our training materials. We provide hopefully pragmatic solutions to improve your business performance, and we do them by design, meaning we try to create what's going to work best for you and what has worked best for others. So I hope you, if you have need for us, you can contact us, or any of my staff will be happy to send you all kinds of information about us. So let's begin. So what's a project? Well, a project in Dr. Juran's definition was something as simple as a problem scheduled for a solution. The word project comes from the word projectile, and that means to throw at. So a project becomes a real activity when leadership provides the resources that are needed to solve the problem. Hence, a problem scheduled for solution is key, that it has resources, it's on the calendar, and we're going to do something about it. So a project is a problem scheduled for solution. So what's a problem? A problem, and we deal with these every day, could be trying to land a person on Mars. There's a problem there. We haven't done it yet. We have to figure it out. The problem is we have to achieve 10% cost reduction. That's a problem because we don't know what to do yet. The problem is the customers are complaining. The problem could also be we don't have a product or service in this category. We need to design one. So the word problem could take on many, many words. And I don't want you to get discouraged by the word problem being negative. We solve science problems every day. We solve social problems every day. And basically a problem is something that is an opportunity for improvement that is preventing us from getting somewhere. So if we're an organization that is trying to improve its performance, those problems get in the way and we need to solve them. There are different kind of problems. They show up in different kind of ways. And what we're going to try to do is put some definition to that so that you can understand the project pipeline. Given a typical organization, no matter how large or small, the product or service is developed, produced, and delivered, whether that production is in a manufacturing facility or in an insurance company or in a hospital or in a library or in a government agency or in any type of company. It's a customer having something delivered to them. And we plan our best to have the best organization and the best possible delivery of service. We try to have the best customer experience. We have the best product quality. We have the best service quality. We try to do all that right. But the reality is we always have things going on that change daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, that prevent us from doing that perfectly every time. And for those of you who are in the transformation field and performance excellence field, or simply Six Sigma, you know that long-term variation causes a lot of our grief, meaning a little bit of variation every day, every week causes our products and services to not meet customer requirements, or that the variation in customer experience in their own level of satisfaction or dissatisfaction changes based on their own personal lives, that our financial and our accounting systems are changing every day. The requirements are changing. Our government standards are changing. So what we end up with is we end up with problems that occur through this value chain or our total supply chain and prevent us from doing everything the way we want it. Another way to look at it is we start adding cost to deal with that variation and those deficiencies. And eventually we get to a point where we're either less efficient than we want to be, or we have to move to new targets, and that causes us to be more efficient, more effective. So organizations mobilize to transform. Some transform, they try to do it by educating everyone and telling them to do better work. Others transform by spending excess amounts of money to reorganize, kind of do a redo, a reset in terms of technology. Others just close down shop and build new factories. But most transformations that are successful take place the way we like to describe it, project by project, meaning the organization sets out a methodical approach to getting the departments that are necessary involved to be able to work together and solve that given problem. So in essence, we are looking to, I'm going to try a little tool here. We are looking to try and move across our value stream. The black boxes represent each department that should get together to work on the green output. And if we can work together to work on that green output, we're going to solve it. So if green is a problem, an opportunity for improvement, we must assign resources, plan it into our business plan, get those people to help us work on it, give them a methodology to use, and let them be on their way. And so project by project improvement is a way, and a very effective way, for an organization to transform itself. So if a project is a problem scheduled for solution, and problems are in abundance across the organization because there are opportunities for improvement, what we need to do is define them, identify them, and mobilize for them. In some of our prior sessions, in some of your own knowledge, mobilizing project improvements require infrastructure, require leaders, trained people, facilitators, black belts, lean experts, those kind of folks to help support and guide. But in essence, the employees are going to do the work. we're just trying to give them something really good to work on. Another way to think about problems is that they're of different types. We could use the Juran trilogy to explain that. We have projects that are in our organizations to create new products, new services, new processes, new technologies, new systems. Those projects are handled by various groups in the organization, some functionally, some multifunctionally, and we do them with our best intentions. And once we plan them, we then run them. These so-called planning projects or design and development projects do their best to try and operate at 100% effectiveness and efficiency. But soon we learn that under real operating conditions, that we're not exactly at the planned level we planned at. And so we then have other tasks, other activities to try to maintain control of what we planned or designed. And in itself, control must be maintained. So when we see that sporadic spike, we then try to affect it, beat it back down. And we could assign another kind of project, a control project, a root cause analysis project, an A4 project, a lean event, something to try to figure out what caused that spike. And as long as we stay within a controlled range and we're effective and efficient, life goes on. But things change. Long-term variation forces us to look at what's below that baseline and look to improve on it. And we like to look at improvement not as a billion little activities, but those breakthrough events that could bring us to a new, better level of performance. So different problems require different approaches. Different problems require different methodologies. In essence, we could use the design for Six Sigma term, quality by design term. It's a method to design better, design innovative products and services so that we do capture and understand the internal and external customers and design features that best meet their needs while designing processes that operate at less need for control. We could have control and compliance projects, which are little daily activities used to maintain or put in place those controls to hold what's critical to quality or critical to performance. And those big breakthrough projects, those Lean Six Sigma projects that improve 50% or more at a time. In essence, what we are doing is that for each different kind of problem, we have a different type of project. So we could have design projects. These are the creation of something new and best done by multifunctional teams. One reason why a lot of our services or products are inefficient or ineffective is that they tend to be designed by a design team, a functional team, when in fact the best innovation can come from multifunctional design, particularly in the early stages of quality by design, which is who are the customers in the broadest sense, what are their needs in the broadest sense, and what design features can we place into our product design, service design that would exceed their expectations so they want to buy this from us. Quality control, safety, process control, and compliance, or simply financial control, financial compliance, those are tasks that are there to assure what's critical to quality, critical to whatever the need is, are met in real time. They tend to be carried out by departments, departmental teams. On one of my earlier sessions, we call them value engagement teams. This is a daily activity. People who know PDSA, PDCA, that is a cycle to control and comply. Some people like to call them projects. But the scope of those projects tend to be smaller than a design project, and hence a breakthrough project. Breakthrough project is what we like to say is a departure from the normal, usual, familiar way into something unknown and much greater. And that's carried out by multifunctional teams. So before we think about creating a pipeline, we have to first understand that every organization has different problems. And when you start looking at the problems, then you must sort them by the importance to the business and what's the right method to use to work on that. So many people try to redesign every process in the company because they only know about a design process, when in fact maybe tweak and control aspect might make a bigger impact. Others are so overly controlled they fail to see the need for design or improvement. And still others think that every problem can be solved with a DeMaic club. So understanding that there are different problems and hence different type of projects, we can begin to start thinking about our journey. Before we do that, I want to take a poll here, and as we always do, and I know for some of you who've been around a while, they might get a little bit similar to you, but I want to know, in your organization or your experience, how well is your organization done or doing in creating a project pipeline? And I can see that, and I think you guys can see that filling up. So the first choice is we have a solid project identification process and full pipeline. About 15% of you, about half of you have a process for identifying projects but no pipeline, and some of you don't have anything. And I'd like to comment on the word pipeline. And as I go back to my lobby here. So we talk about the word pipeline, and pipeline is just how we would like to think of the way to collect our problems and sort them and put them in a succession plan that allows us to have a continuous flow of projects over time. And so the word pipeline really just means the collection of problems turned into projects that we can then monitor, and when we have the need to go and improve, we can pull these projects out, keeping in mind too that projects do change over time. So the pipeline is just a collection of projects that we need to work on, but we have yet to schedule them. So they are problems until they're scheduled. They're in the pipeline. Once they're scheduled, they become a real project. And the first thing we notice is that there could be different kind of projects. So the first thing we do is we want to make sure we understand not all projects need the same club. So there could be design, there could be improvement, there could be control, there could be lean, there could be many, many types. It doesn't matter. This is not your first step. The first step is what's the problems. The second step is let's make sure we sort them properly. When we distinguish between improvement and design, there's an interesting way you can think about this. If we were to assign a product failure or a customer complaint to 5 separate teams and give them a DeMaic or root cause analysis or an A4 method or an A8 method of problem solving, all 5 teams should come up with a similar solution because they would all have found a similar root cause to the same problem. That is the nature of root cause analysis. However, if we gave 5 design teams an unmet need or the goal to develop a new service feature for our customers, it is likely that all 5 teams will come up with something very different. Design teams push innovation and ideas forward to meet an unmet need. An improvement team analyzes what's happening now and finds what's preventing it from doing what it's supposed to do and putting it back in that order. And the difference between a corrective action and an improvement team is nothing more than the scope or the size of it. So if you think about an organization, if all we ever did were improvement teams, we wouldn't design much because we would be missing what's important externally to our organization as things change. So what we want to be able to do is fill the pipeline with unmet needs as well as defects or deficiencies on currently met needs. So for instance, we might have a target of 98% patient satisfaction, and we're operating at 78%. We know that if we get to 98%, we're going to be more efficient, more effective, and get more patients and be rewarded by our government better than we would if we were at 78%. but the problem is we're not there. So we need to take a look. Are we not there because we have deficiencies, which require improvement teams? Or are we not there because we don't have proper services or the right service line to meet those patient needs, and hence we have to design them? If we identify unmet needs, then we create projects that are aimed at closing the unmet need, hence a design team. If we identify deficiencies, then we identify projects related to that. So they both start filling up that pipeline. The problem is we can't do a lot of design teams because they are larger in scope and they affect more people. So we have a rule of thumb that for every 10 improvement teams in an organization, you may only have one design team. So for every 100 improvement teams, you may have 10 design teams. And for every 10 improvement teams, you may have 100 control teams. So in other words, control is something done every day, so you do more of them and they're smaller. Improvement are bigger and breakthroughs, so you do them because they really impact the business. And design are less frequent but very impactful because they go after unmet needs. Design projects tend to focus on new products, goods, services, information, or new challenges. This is one of the key aspects of good design. We may have a time to market of our new service of 6 months, and we've improved that process so that it's in control. But we find out our competitor does it in 30 days. We may not be able to improve that process the way it is, so we may have to create a new one. So if we have to get a significant change in a current process, it becomes a new challenge and may become something more important to a design project. So this is just a little bit of understanding between those two. By a show of hands, how many of your organizations only have improvement-like projects versus design projects? So these are people that are raising their hands. We only have improvement projects. And how many of you have truly design projects that I just talked about? And how many of you feel that your organization has a really good understanding of that balance between improvement, design, and control projects? I like the last one, nobody. So all of you have to call Juran Institute so we can help you. So why not? Well, a lot of times things are going well in improvement, so we don't move into design. Or things are going so well in design, we don't think about improvement. But the reality is you're going to come to a fork in the road where you run out of projects because you're only looking at one part of that funnel or the other. So you need to look more broadly. You also have to stop looking at the production or operations and look into non-production, non-operations. You have to look at external versus internal. So the scope can vary, but more importantly, the type of projects will vary if you do that. So that brings us to our first essential. If we understand that there are all kinds of problems and there are different methods to fix them, what makes a good pipeline? Well, the first one is, regardless of the problems you find, not all problems solved will help our business move forward. For instance, we have a problem that is minor to the corporation, but major to your department. If it's not aligned to where the organization is going, we should not waste our resources on it. So alignment is our first essential. And essentially, no pun intended, what that means is whatever's filling that funnel at the top, the stuff coming out at the bottom are those things that are only going to help us build our business plan or achieve our business plan. So in other words, our business plan is a tree diagram moving from left to right. What is our vision? What are the goals? And what are those projects that meet the goals? If we fill up this funnel with all kinds of problems, we have to evaluate those against our goals, against our targets. They become the most important projects that managers and leaders will support. If there's no alignment, you may get initial support until you have to make a change in process. And then all of a sudden people say, oh my God, I'm not going to do that. And so you're stuck. To avoid that failure later, align projects first. As an example, and okay, so I just see dark picture here, but when you get this slide, you'll get a full picture. But the words that go into boxes on the left would be your vision, mission, and goals. And on the project side, this was a live example in a hospital, the vision might be to be the best performing hospital in your region. The strategy might be to to provide the best possible emergency care within 30 minutes of arriving. And a project might be increase the flow of patients through admissions. So project leads to the goal, which leads to our vision. And that's what alignment's about. If our organization has set out a goal to reduce costs 10%, then we can't have projects that are going to be spending company money to get no reduction in cost. So we align projects by going after those that we know can have waste in the system, and we can eliminate that waste. That's what alignment is about. And without alignment, you get less support as the project goes on. So to get that pipeline going, what we want to do is identify the performance issues, like not meeting targets, not meeting goals, or external dissatisfaction, or internal dissatisfaction. And then get information on them so we can evaluate their worthiness and alignment. And with that evaluation, then identify the project charters that would come out of those. And essentially, the three essentials are: 1, having alignment; 2, evaluating; and 3, making sure that every project supported has a charter. So when we say we want to align, our starting point is, what do we know? We have customer dissatisfaction reports. Do we have cost of poor quality audits? Do we have reviews and audits of product failures, system failures, employee satisfaction, supplier dissatisfaction? What do we have now as the starting point? Now, if your organization is in an industry that is artisan-driven, you may not have a lot of data and graphs and charts to know what these inputs are. Other industries, you may have very substantial amount of graphs and charts that can show and distinguish the performance you're at versus where you want to be. Those all become inputs, but only those areas that are important to the business. If we don't care about customer satisfaction, then we're not going to worry about dissatisfaction. If we don't care about waste, then we don't care about cost of poor quality. But whatever the targets are set by the organization, we have these various inputs at starting points. We also have the voices of leadership and employees who say, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. If we had this, we could do this. If we had that, we could do that. Those are inputs too. What makes the input go to an output is what happens in the middle. We investigate. I don't believe any senior leader who says this is a problem until we obtain some information to prove that it really exists. We don't want a project to take resources and launch it and 3 months later have no problem found. So we want to get some information on every input that is selected so that we know it's real. So we evaluate those inputs. So our first step is to get the inputs aligned with what's important to the business. These are your key performance indicators, your scorecards. And I have to say this, if you are IBM, you don't do this necessarily at the top of the organization and expect everybody in the organization to get it. You do it as close to local as possible. You do it business unit by business unit in large companies. You do it by region, but you have to break it up into parts. Oh, I'm sorry. A OFI is an opportunity for improvement or a problem, and an OFI is the term that we use in our National Quality Award and Malcolm Baldrige Performance Excellence Award because they don't like the word problem. So our inputs, collect some data, make a list of outputs. Then prove that these problems are real or not. This is the evaluation process. The evaluation process done by many belts is typically pause. What are we not achieving versus what we plan to achieve? using a selection matrix that some of you learned, identifies what those potential projects are and puts a grid against two sets of criteria, what makes a good project and what makes a good project at my company. But let me pause. I have poll number 2. That's why I paused there, because someone shouted at me. Am I on track right now? This is about the subject matter and, of course, your voice, me. Are we doing okay so far? I could tell that some of you might have fallen asleep or you've dropped off, but nobody's dropped off, so let's keep you awake. I was in Los Angeles a couple weeks ago at a very unique wedding, and I met one of my voice idols as a disc jockey when I was young. His name was M.G. Kelly, or Machine Gun Kelly. And when this man spoke, he demonstrated the whole importance of quality of voice. So I'm trying to practice clarity now, even at my age. So if you don't hear me or don't like my voice, please let me know the content there. So what we have now is we want to prove those problems are real, at least real enough so we can work on them at some point. Keep in mind, a pipeline is a pile of project charters. We execute them when we have the need or when we have the focus, the energy, the money, and we don't do them all at once. So a pipeline means we have a continuous flow, drip by drip, of projects. And keep in mind, too, for large organizations, this is done as local as you can so that the goals that are established for the business unit, then you carry it out from that business unit goal. And the hope is that the organization at the corporate level understands the relationship between each business unit goal. So our second essential is that list of targets that are aligned with some information, and now we evaluate. And how do we evaluate, and what do we evaluate against? Well, we want to evaluate that against two sets of criteria. We call it must criteria and want criteria. Must criteria are the lessons that we've learned over time that make a good project. For instance, we know a good project is one that when you solve the problem, we save a lot of money. We know a good problem is one that when we solve the problem, that the customers become very happy. So we know those kind of things. But we also know is that some problems are too big to handle and therefore never get solved. Some problems will never be solved because no known solution exists, like today fighting various diseases. So what we know is that there are some criteria that helps you have success in getting a project solved. Those are the must criteria. The want criteria, once the must are met, says what we'd like to do in my company. So for instance, a good project must have a clear, observable deficiency, meaning if we can't see that there's a problem, then it doesn't exist. So customer dissatisfaction is an observable phenomena because they're talking to you, they're telling you, they're sending you complaints. Customer defects, warranties, those are observable. Now, just because they're observable doesn't mean they're good projects. They have to also be significant, meaning, is it worth solving that problem to our business? Or is it going to cost more than the pain? Significance should be about how good and how big it's going to be for us. The third one is it too big to be unmanageable? Therefore, is it of manageable size? Some of you may recall in your organization you set cost targets, like a Greenbelt project should net $250,000 per project, or a Black Belt project should do $500,000. We like to equate manageable size to that cost reduction. And so that's one way to look at it. Another type of way to look at manageable size is scope. If you're going to try to eat an elephant, that's going to take a lot more effort than if you only try to eat a part of the elephant. So manageable size has some help in scoping it down or scoping it up. And lastly, it's got to be measurable. Just because it's observable doesn't mean it's measurable. Just because it's observable doesn't mean we know how to measure it. So the must criteria forces you to ask the questions, how important is this project, this problem to the business? How important is this problem to us If it's so important, we got to go get some data on it. It's so important, we should be monitoring it. These must criteria actually coined the term MOMS, M-O-M-S. And our belief is before you launch any project, make sure you check with all the moms, because if you check with the moms, you know you're going to have success. And frankly, if you checked with all the dads, you probably wouldn't have as much success. So must criteria equals moms. If you have moms, you can go on to the wants. The want criteria. Well, this is really your choice. But we see organizations say, okay, we want to select the best projects from our pipeline that are going to have the greatest financial impact, greatest cultural impact. Or we just got a note from the FDA that says we have a consent decree hanging over our head. We have a sense of urgency to solve these problems. We want projects aimed at this sense of urgency. Or if you're in the United States, the Affordable Care Act and the CMS rules have changed, and we have an urgency, or we're going to get penalized, so let's put projects in that area. Another want might be, hey, we don't want to take anything on that's great risk to our culture, to our company, so let's go after things that doesn't have so much risk. Or let's mitigate risk and go after them specifically. Maybe the problem is going to create too much resistance, so let's not do it. So in other words, the want criteria are your choices. Once mom's met, pick anything you'd like, because that's going to be helpful to getting resources that you need to get this problem solved. So we get our list of problems, which could be all different kinds. We start throwing them into the funnel by collecting some information on them, clarifying them. We then prioritize them based on whether they meet our MOMS criteria, and then we prioritize them once again by our want criteria. And although this might sound like an awful lot, it takes hours, not months or weeks. And essential number 3, let me say one more thing about essential number 2. I have seen so many organizations try to select projects through surveys, through individual employees, nominating projects, through focus groups, through all different kind of mechanisms. The best way to keep the funnel going is a quarterly, multifunctional leadership, workforce, time set aside that says, let's have a 1-hour discussion about where we are, what we're working on, what we're not working on, for the potential of filling that pipeline. In other words, the best way to get projects is to talk about them. And then let the belts or the experienced facilitators go off and obtain more information. So any kind of collective group of brilliance is going to get you farther than any kind of employee survey. They just don't work. Number 3, just because we have potential projects doesn't mean they're actionable. So we would like to see every project that gets into that funnel at the bottom have a one-page charter. And basically the charter says, these are the projects we would like to solve, these are the problems we would like to solve, and these are the people we'd like to solve them. Now, part of that charter can be done at the time of nomination and prioritization, and part of that charter can be done when we're ready to launch them. The part of the charter that gets done initially is the problem statement, the goal statement, the scope, the importance, and the financial impact. The team that gets selected and the type of method can come later because we don't have to act on them right away. However, if you do pick the type of method you want to do and you find that you have too many of one method, you might want to select the project based on the different method. So what we have here is a list of selected projects. We describe it, we begin our charter, and we write that potential project charter and prioritize them according to the want criteria. And for most of you, a good project charter is one that simply states what's the opportunity for improvement. In other words, what's the problem, where we'd like to take that problem, our goal, what's the business case to do it. The scope really decides the span of this project. And then we could do 5 and 6 later on. So any kind of project charter that looks like that, one page most, is going to get you a lot further than some leader or manager sitting in a room complaining that customer X doesn't like our product or customer X didn't like their service. And then you mobilize a team and you find out, coincidentally, customer X had no complaint about the service. They were complaining about that person. So we want to make sure we work on stuff that is real. And in the words of Dr. Juran, there's a never-ending flow of problems to solve because every day we're forced to move to new targets. And in the absence of any problems, defects, the best way to fill the pipeline is to raise the bar on your targets. So with that, I've got one more poll question for you, and then we'll talk a little bit about, so will your pipeline be full of high-value projects if you stay on your current path? So in other words, if you do nothing, if your organization does nothing, will you end up having some of the pitfalls that I described? For instance, if you're just doing improvement projects, you're going to run out of projects. If you're not doing design projects, you're probably not getting the benefit of meeting unmet needs. So give me a quick response here. Interesting. This is very balanced here. So on the poll, the second poll, which asked folks, it was about 15% of you had only improvement, a big chunk of you had design, and only about a third of you had both. And in this one here, you're all worried a little bit about that pipeline. So hopefully we gave you some information that might help you go forward. The one thing I did not present here today was an actual or project screening spreadsheet. And what I will ask my staff to do is provide those who are interested in that a copy or a link to that so you can see exactly how the wants and musts are dealt with. And it's basically a 10-5-1 scoring system. So with that, I'd like to thank you and let you know about the upcoming webinars we have in the next couple weeks, or next couple months. And we're also going to be having a special webinar coming up on the future role of the transformational executive or the quality professional. We're going to stick in there as well because we've had a pretty good demand for it. Also, my staff's got some things to give away, and I'd love to come out and talk to you, or some of my staff would be. So I will turn it back over to Scott, my narrator, and let you guys finish up here. And I know my staff will be coming up with a way for you guys to win prizes. And I'm going to give the first prize to anybody who'd like to shovel 4 feet of snow south of Boston. You're welcome. I'll pay a round-trip ticket to come up there and do that. In any case, I would like to thank you.